I am here to welcome you all to the sixth edition of Digital Delhi Conclave. So, Digital Delhi Conclave is an initiative by IIIT-Delhi to provide a platform for deliberations around the relationship between digital technologies and sustainable development goals. This edition, today, the 2025, promises to continue this tradition, focusing on digital public infrastructure as a means to achieve equity, resilience, and sustainability. Which started off with a very simple idea to start a public discussion on how to see digital technologies help achieve the goals of the SDGs. Today, when I go out, I can make a 50 rupee payment to a street vendor without even taking out my wallet. And the vendor is more than happy to take that 50 rupee payment because he doesn't have to fiddle for a change. When I go to the airport, I don't have to take up my Aadhaar card because my face is my passport in Digi Yatra. This is how integrated DPI has become in our day-to-day lives. By 2030, the economic advantage generated by DPI would be over 4% of then GDP of the country. Phenomenal. So DPI is an enabling technology. We're at the right place at the right time to debate on the right topic.
The relationship between government and technology is as old as modern government itself. So in that sense, it's not an entirely new question. However, what it does bring to the picture is a new combination of how private entities can participate in public functions.
What is privacy? Anybody in this room wants to define privacy? We all know what is privacy, but we can't define privacy. You know very well what is privacy. I'll take your data, you'll be worried about your privacy, but you don't know what is privacy. We have also a very unique kind of censorship mechanism. It's called coercion. China doesn't have this. It's very unique to India, where you have companies, the authorities coerce companies to take down data, take down posts, take down tweets. So there's dissent, take down the data. There's dissent, take down the posts, tweets, everything. That's very unique to India, which has also recently we have been talking about this digital Personal Data Protection Act, DPDP Act. Mind you, this word DPDP does not have the word privacy anywhere. It's all about personal data protection. Data protection is the word people use, not privacy. There's a catch over there. They talk about privacy, but they don't talk about privacy. The problem with that law is the very first clause. As you can see, it says that a person may process the personal data of a principal only in accordance with the provisions of this act for lawful purposes. And then saying what is lawful, that is not explicitly forbidden by the law. That is lawful. Means anything, everything the government can take and process.
It started with the concept of Aadhaar, and then it became into India Stack, culminating a couple of these technologies together. And then when India became the president of G20, it really wanted a term to internationalize, this branding of what was called the India Stack technologies. And that's how the term DPI, Digital Public Infrastructure, came out. And it's very much about going international with this brand of India Stack, the different layers of India Stack to answer my view on the question of what is privacy. I would say it's the ability to draw barriers and boundaries around what you find acceptable, right? And it could have many, many dimensions. And this is a really interesting paper. I will encourage people to look at it. Coops and others, which was also quoted by the Supreme Court in Puttaswamy. The Supreme Court also said was that this is an essential right. It's rooted in dignity. It's rooted in life, liberty, but it's also not an absolute right. And they laid down certain tests on when the state can kind of violate or, override your right to privacy. With that, I wanted to transition to talk about, one other application of, DPI, which we are seeing currently, which is in the health ecosystem, right? The Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission. And in this way, this is kind of an advancement of many of the ideas of previous versions of DPI, the idea of a digital ID, which comes from Aadhaar, of course, the idea of what is called a digital empowerment and protection architecture, which is basically a consent management framework and is really at the crux of it, something which the Data Protection Act also talks about. And its first stage of autonomy on whether or not you participate in a particular system, whether you have that ability, that self-determination to say that, I am entitled to what I'm entitled to, irrespective of which digital ecosystem I'm forced to be put under. Finally, I want to just talk about the question of consent. As I said, all of this is around the idea of consent management and the idea that, you're empowering the individual by saying you have the right to say who has your data for how long, and this is the way to do it through electronic consent management. And I just want to say that consent management really has two elements. One is the technical part of it, right? Of all of this. How does the data flow? Do you have logs of it? Are you able to verify, authenticate? That's one part of it. But there is a structural problem of consent, right? Which is that when you have a doctor patient relationship, you are in no way to say that I don't consent, right? There is a very deep problem of that asymmetry between the doctor and patient. So, in this context, inevitably everyone is going to consent to the sharing of their data.
What I think of privacy is basically it's a right to choose which is given to people. Whether they want to share something, whether they want to participate in something, whether they want to, you know, they have a choice to decide what amount of data, what is the limit with which they want to have it shared.
If you talk about this data, DPDP, it's oh no, we have the government. We have all the right to take all your data. We don't know what you're doing. We don't know what you're doing with that. 3rd of January, the rules came out for the DPDP. 4th of January, the government went and blocked 6 VPNs, saying that, oh, you better collect the data. If you're not collecting the data of users, we'll block you. And they didn't comply with it because they got blocked.
When I see as privacy, I also feel that it's a fact when it comes to the legislation which are there. But when you come to seeing at the grassroots level, we are using WhatsApp, when you're using Facebook, we are seeing it as a free application. We are not seeing that we are giving a lot of data, which is God knows who is having access to it. And
the Indian model of internet censorship is little different from China. And it's not just about having firewalls blocking your traffic. It's also about government having the position and power to go and coerce. And that coercion is complied with. Right? I'll give you an example. You sign up with a bank account. Your bank, not only the bank knows everything about your transaction details. Every employee in that branch knows about it. Without your consent, they know about it. They didn't come and had you known that everybody in the bank will know about it, you better not then create an account. You will not create an account in that bank. But that's how private banks operate. Then they'll approach you, and I'm sure many of you must have been a victim to that. They'll approach you, please buy this insurance plan, please buy that mutual fund, please buy this, please buy that. How did they get to know? They know everything about your this thing. So somebody and we are quite well aware of the insurance mutual fund scams which are out there.
The idea of privacy and how different people articulate it is very different. So, in the railway system, when you go into a train, you see outside the railway bogie, there will be a list put up, right, with your name, your age, your seat number, and people go and check their seat number. I don't know if it still happens, but that used to be the way to check, whether you're the person who's on the ticket. And people were asked about, how do you feel about that? Do you feel this is violation of your privacy? You're giving out all this information. It's been put up in the public domain. And people were like, no, it's fine. Even though it's like really specific, your age is there, your phone number might be there. But most people said that was fine.
Basically, the question of how do you ensure privacy is addressed, I think, in two ways. One is transparency, the other is protection. One of the difficulties with some of the technologies we are seeing now is, on the one hand, there is this illusion that it's a private experience. But on the other hand, you don't know what's happening under the hood, if you want. The railway compartment is interesting because it ensures privacy by the mere fact that the paper is low quality, and by the time the train reaches the destination, it's already destroyed. So the destruction of the data is kind of inbuilt into the materiality of where the information is recorded.
do you think the step taken by government of having consent taken in multiple languages, in 22 scheduled languages of India, is it gonna promote kind of transparency which Professor Prince was talking, or is it gonna be some kind of impediment for the industry or the organizations to actually implement taking consent?
You can have this thing of you having consent in many languages, etc., etc. But as Prince correctly pointed out, what about this? Where do you keep it? How long you retain it after that consent? I'll take consent, but then what do I do with it? Where I retain it? Do you have an option to give a consent of no and still get the services? Because that's what the Puttaswamy says, that if I can endanger your privacy only in cases where the state is going to give some benefit to the beneficiary.
We got a lot about, okay, that government can use your data for whatever purpose they deem lawful and so on and so forth. But what if there is a data breach on the data of the Indian citizens by essentially corporations and entities which are based elsewhere? This data circulation across the world is also creating new kind of what is called data relations between global north and global south, for instance. So is there anything which is offering protection for this external breach of data? Internal, though we know anyways, is not getting handled.
By the act of the DPDP Act, it actually says that that any kind of anything, I mean, any instance where which endangers the friendly relations with foreign nations happen, the law is going to exempt you from all those cases. Meaning that if, let's say, Amazon uses the data, be it Amazon India or Amazon US, they use the data. But if you going and filing a lawsuit has an impact on the relation India has with the United States, then the law, then unfortunately DPDP will not try to protect you. We're clear about it. There's no mincing word. They're very clear about it. That as long as any list of exemptions, clause 17 talks exactly of this one of those things.
If consent is something which, even if someone who understands English, as ma'am pointed out, it takes 82 minutes for someone to even read, let alone interpret it. Do we need to imagine giving consent, moving away from the individual? Let's say I have a lawyer. I don't need to understand Indian law. I have a lawyer who represents me. In a similar fashion, someone can be a data steward who looks after my data. So do we need to imagine data protection in those terms where it's not just individualistic, it's also more community based in that sense? And
one thing we often talk about in terms of anonymity is like anonymity. We call it anonymity loves company. You hide in the crowd. Okay, so anonymization systems, what they will do is they will look all your data look pretty similar. You have an entire body of things called privacy enhancing technologies designed for different purpose, each one designed for different purposes. Some designed to hide your anonymity while you browse the internet, some designed to redact information which you're saving in a database.
What is your opinion on that kind of parent and consent when it comes to implementing privacy aspects or on any DPI?
A company or an agency saying, oh, look, we are pro privacy and we are going to do this and we're going to do that, that's just good. Those are claims. And I have no way but to trust something on face value then. There's no evidence, no mathematical proof which will ensure that this is happening.
We need to worry a little bit about the way that's designed and where that's going, because the text of it and the way when one reads it, it looks like we are going towards the regime of Aadhaar based authentication of parental consent, because you want a verifiable age ID of the parent. You need to prove that this child is the child of this parent. What are these documents that we have? And then the government needs to find this to be acceptable.
Political will is connected to the will of corporates. If the corporates see a benefit in this, the political will follow. I don't think there will be a honest, intentful political will for privacy, because in a country where privacy is looked down upon with suspicion, that why is he trying to seek privacy, something wrong must be doing. There, if somebody is offering you privacy and somebody is offering you privacy pretty much at free of cost, something which comes at something which is something which comes at pretty much at a very low cost as compared to free of cost, you look at it with a lot of suspicion because you could be the service in that case.
Just within the ministries and departments, there is so much data that is being aggregated, again non-personal data at this stage, and they are creating a sort of DPI, but limited to the government use case in this case, about how will you clean, standardize, put up this data in a way then that it becomes accessible to other ministries.
how do we look at the role of public advocacy in the current context?
India historically has been a collectivistic society. Even a person grows up in India, you have everybody asking him or her 10 questions about his career, education, personal life, health, this, that, marks, etc. Uske kitne marks hai, tumhare kam kyun aaye? I don't need to overemphasis on this. Do we have privacy in our homes? We don't actually. We don't. Nobody cares about privacy in your home. Nobody cares about your opinion in your home. Everything is a collectivistic thing. In a collectivistic society, the concept of individual and individual privacy itself is being looked at with suspicion. Any service you are getting, be it a high-speed internet, be it a mobile service, be it WhatsApp, this, that, Paytm, blah, 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 tens of different things you're using. Any business you're consuming, the price you're paying is for performance, speed, efficiency, stuff like that. You're not paying for privacy, you're not paying for security. The strange thing is, you buy a car tomorrow, you'll look at safety. You're not looking at how fast that accelerometer speeds up. You're looking at safety of that vehicle when you're buying a car. You're going to spend money, 20 lakhs, 30 lakh to buy a car which is safe.
It's a good question to ask, why do we not have a word for privacy in our languages? And the automatic answer then seems to be that it is a Western concept, right? My intuition is that it is an outcome of lazy conceptualization, and we are responsible for it. Implementing privacy and looking for kind of a regulation around it in our kind of a setting where individual moral dignity, individual human dignity may or may not have been defined in the same way as it is defined, say, in a European society or in an American society, right?